Let's just jump right in. Take a moment, seriously, right now, and just breathe. Think about where you are currently in your life, and then think about where you actually want to be. Today, we're going to talk about that gap, that space between the two. Because maybe, just maybe, the biggest reason you aren't where you want to be at has absolutely nothing to do with how smart you are, or your talent, or money, or even getting the right opportunities. The real obstacle? It's a lot simpler and honestly, a whole lot harder to admit to ourselves. Have you ever noticed just how much time we spend getting ready to start? I mean, we all fall into this trap, right? This universal need for total certainty before we make a move. We want the perfect strategy, the flawless path, the exact right timing, and every single step mapped out. We research, we binge tutorials, we plan, and we tell ourselves, I'll start when I'm perfectly prepared. But here's the catch. While we're frantically searching for that certainty, time is just blowing right past us. The hard truth? You're never going to feel completely ready. Real life just doesn't hand over all the answers before you make your first move. See, there's this massive, glaring gap between planning and reality. When you're in the planning phase, nothing can go wrong. Your idea is absolutely flawless in your head. But reality? The second you actually take action, the world steps up and starts challenging you. Maybe nobody likes your first attempt. Maybe that first business idea completely tanks. Or your initial product looks, frankly, painfully amateur and you suddenly realize you know way less than you thought. Reality literally forces you to confront the imperfections of your ideas. And it's wild how our daily habits kind of act like a mirror for this. We love to tell ourselves, I'm just preparing. But deep down, if we're being really honest, we're often just trying to dodge the possibility of failing. Because hey, if we never actually launch the project, we can never actually fail at it, right? Perfectionism can look a whole lot like intelligence and careful strategy. But a lot of the time, it's literally just fear wearing a really sophisticated disguise. So it boils down to two paths. Sure, putting an imperfect idea out into the world can sting. It's vulnerable. But there is something infinitely more dangerous than failing. And that's spending years wondering what could have happened if you had just started. The person who starts imperfectly gets actual real-world data. They figure out what truly works. Meanwhile, the person waiting for perfection is just guessing. They're spending years trapped in their own mind, just wondering what might have been. The imperfect starter actually has this massive advantage. Think about James Dyson for a second. He created over 5,000 failed prototypes before he finally nailed his iconic vacuum. 5,000. He figured out what worked by discovering exactly what didn't. He learned directly from his mistakes, and he gained real, messy, tangible experience. So while one person is sitting on the sidelines, endlessly studying how to play the game, the imperfect starter is already in the arena. They're playing, they're losing, they're learning, and they're getting better every single day. It's kind of like driving on an unfamiliar, pitch-black road at night. Your headlights only illuminate, the next 200 feet? You don't need to see the entire road all the way to your destination before you hit the gas pedal. You just need to see that next section and be willing to turn the steering wheel when you feel yourself drifting. Meaningful change in your life, it doesn't happen through one magical, perfect decision. It happens through thousands of tiny, courageous little corrections along the way. But that brings up a really modern dilemma. Technology has put everything on hyperspeed, right? We've got AI and tools that let us test, fail, and improve faster than literally any generation in history. We have fewer excuses than ever to spend weeks just thinking about something. But there is a huge trap here. The more options you have, the easier it is to just freeze. You can burn hours comparing tools, tweaking strategies, totally paralyzed by choice, while someone else just picks one thing and starts. And that leads us to a complete paradigm shift. We have to completely redefine how we think about confidence. You do not become confident and then take action. That is a total myth. Actually, scratch that. It's backwards. You become confident because you take action. Confidence is the result. It's not a requirement. It's the reward you get for stepping into the unknown, not the prerequisite for doing it. Let's break down how this actually shapes who you are. Your new identity doesn't just magically appear before you do the work. It's built through the work. You want more courage? You build it by doing difficult things. You want discipline? You build it by keeping small promises to yourself, especially when you really don't feel like it. Want to be a creator? Then create. The determined person is built every single time you choose to keep going after that initial excitement wears off. You literally become who you repeatedly choose to be today. Okay, I need to pivot here for a second and offer a little tough love. We are so utterly terrified of failure, right? But here's the thing, failure at least creates a reaction. Rejection forces you to grow, difficulty forces you to adopt, but comfort? Comfort is silently dangerous. It doesn't scream at you, it whispers. It says, hey, you can start tomorrow, or now's just not the right time, or once things calm down a bit, then I'll begin. And before you know it, months silently turn into years. Let this truth really sink in for a second. You don't lose your life through one massive, cinematic disaster. You lose pieces of it through thousands of small, almost invisible decisions to postpone the very things you know you need to do. Comfort does not destroy your dreams overnight. It just slowly makes them less important. First, you delay. Then, you get used to delaying. Then the urgency completely fades out, until you eventually convince yourself that the dream really wasn't that important anyway. Please, whatever you do, do not let that happen to you. If there's something you know you need to start, you've got to stop confusing preparation with procrastination. They are absolutely not the same thing. You don't need to build the perfect project, you just need to build the first version. You don't need to film the flawless video, you just need to hit record on the first one. You don't need the whole path, you just need the next step. And here's a harsh reality check. You don't need to eliminate fear before you act. Act while you're afraid. Stop waiting for the fear to just pack up and leave, because fear usually doesn't disappear before you start moving. A lot of the time, the only way it vanishes is after you prove to yourself that you can move forward despite it. Your action is the exact thing that starves the fear. Now, I know exactly what you're thinking. What if I do take action and people criticize me? What if they laugh? What if they tell me it's never going to work? Well, I'll be honest with you, some people probably will. And you know what? That is perfectly okay. You cannot build an extraordinary life while constantly trying to keep everyone around you comfortable with your decisions. If you need a unanimous vote of approval before you begin, you are never going to begin. See, your job isn't to immediately prove to the world that your idea is a guaranteed home run. Your responsibility is just to find out whether it can work, and the only way to find that out is by actually doing it. So what if your first attempt is a complete disaster? Well, good. Now you know. We really have to reframe how we view these setbacks. If your first attempt is terrible, good. Now you know exactly what needs fixing. If your second try only gets a tiny result, awesome. Now you have a clear direction. If you fail 10 times, excellent. You just eliminated 10 paths that were never going to work anyway. The problem isn't failing. The problem is taking that failure, turning it into your identity, and deciding that you're just fundamentally incapable. You do not need to win today. You just need to keep moving. And man, that is a massive, life-altering distinction. The people who actually manage to change their lives, they aren't necessarily these flawless geniuses who always make the right choices. They're just the people who manage to stay in motion long enough to finally learn what works. Most folks just quit way too early. They try something for 2 weeks, see zero results, and just walk away. But you gotta understand that the best things in life take time to compound. Think about it. Knowledge compounds, skill compounds, your relationships compound, reputation compounds, discipline compounds. Small, seemingly totally insignificant actions, when you repeat them consistently for months on end, they create results that look absolutely impossible when viewed from a distance. You're building a fortress here, and you're doing it brick by brick. So do yourself a favor and stop looking at other people's highlight reels. Do not compare your raw, messy, unedited Chapter 1 to someone else's perfectly polished Chapter 20. It is a completely unfair comparison, and it's just going to paralyze you. Drop the comparisons entirely. Just put your blinders on, tune out the noise, and focus solely on your own immediate next move. That is literally all that matters. Okay, so the absolute most crucial point here is mastering this very simple cycle. Let's call it the action loop. Endless planning, that's not movement. Consuming more and more information, not movement. Sitting around thinking about movement, definitely not movement. You turn information into action by taking one step. You observe what happens, you learn from it, you adjust, and then you take another step. This one simple loop is the ultimate secret to actually transforming your life. Which brings me to the absolute most important question we're going to talk about today. What is the one thing you can do today that moves you closer to the life you want? Listen to me, not 6 months from now, not next Monday, not when the kids are older, or when you finally get that promotion. Today, right now. Maybe it's hitting publish on that blog. Maybe it's making a scary phone call. Maybe it's just opening a blank document and writing the first sentence. Do something real today. Because you have to realize that the perfect leveled up version of yourself isn't just going to magically poof into existence before you start putting in the work. You have to build that person through your daily, sometimes really messy choices. The future you want so badly, it is not going to politely come down to meet you where you're standing right now. You have to actively, relentlessly move toward it. You've got to stop asking whether you're perfectly ready. Instead, ask what needs to be done. Stop searching for the perfect moment. Ask what the very next move is. Stop trying to eliminate every single possibility of failure and start using that failure as vital, necessary information. And most importantly, stop negotiating with your own life. If you know what needs to be done, just do it. Even if it's small, even if it's incredibly imperfect, even if you are absolutely terrified. Because I promise you, a year from now, you're going to look back and fiercely wish you had started today. The board is set. It's your turn. So ask yourself right now, what will your very first beautifully imperfect move be?